When it comes to the human spirit, I believe that the potential is limitless. And it is coming from a person who has a lot of limitations. I was born with I was born with type 1 osteogenesis imperfecta, which is a very fancy name for brittle bones. The idea is my bones are like glass, so whenever I fell as a child, I break a bone. I'm also very fortunate that I have the mildest form of this condition. So I've met people who have type 3 and onwards. So I personally am very fortunate, very blessed to have it easier in a sense. Today, I would like to share a little bit more about how we can discover and harness the potential of the human spirit. I personally am a big fan of comic books, right? So I have my own array of superheroes that I liked when I was young. My favorite superhero is Batman because he is limited by the fact that he doesn't have a power, but he uses what he has to contribute, right? So because of my condition, I've broken my bones so many times. I lost count a long time ago. What I don't even really have a memory of myself walking. I only could find pictures of myself. That is one of the last pictures of me standing as a child. And for as long as I could remember, my mom had to carry me in her arms wherever we went. I came from a family that is not very well to do financially, and because of that, we could never afford a wheelchair. And my mom had to carry me to school, leave me there in my first year in primary. She would wait there till recess to bring me to the toilet. Then after that, I would wear diapers up until I was probably about 10 years old. And at 10 years old, I finally managed to have my own wheelchair, and that was, I think, one of the best sensations of freedom I've had. So a lot of people would think that I would dream of walking and running. I think I've had that when I was younger. But ever since I got the wheelchair is much better. So I can sit everywhere I went, right? Um, I couldn't go out and play a lot when I was younger. So I could only go to school and home. School and home. So I had a lot of time in my hands. So one of my favorite habits was to daydream, right? Who can relate to that? Daydreaming, especially during lectures, right? I daydream a lot when I'm at home because I couldn't just play physically, so I would always daydream of the most ridiculous things. I would think of myself as a superhero. What would I be? I thought about a lot of scenarios of what kind of powers I like. Do I want to fly? But flying, but not having super strength, landing might be a problem, right? So, what if I can heal myself? What if I can have super strength? All those things, right? So I have a habit of daydreaming. But I guess that was the start of a lot of the habits that I had later on that will help me in life. And one of the biggest process that helped me in discovering my potential is the habit of dreaming the impossible. It came from daydreaming, and from daydreaming, I developed a habit of just analyzing my whole day, just recapping my whole day. And I could be 10 years old and I would think through the day before I sleep and realize that I offended a friend. That, okay, I probably said something that will hurt my friend. And then it became a habit of introspection where I was able to think internally and ask myself questions that I couldn't think of initially. And that helped me in discovering areas that I could improve on, areas that I would like to explore on more. But one of the key things I believe in harnessing and discovering our human potential is dreaming the impossible. when we are kids, it is very easy for us to dream the impossible, isn't it? Right? What are some of the ambitions that you may have as a kid? You could say, I want to be a pilot, right? It's quite possible, right? I want to be a scientist. I always say that I want to be a scientist because while I was 7 years old, I was the only boy in class that could spell scientist, right? So I was like, okay, I want to be a scientist, just to brag to my friends. I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but as you can see, it didn't work out very well, right? Doctor said I could only do lame jokes, so yeah. And there are a lot of things that we have thought of as a kid that later on it became impossible, right? Maybe some of us have dreams of becoming an astronaut, right? Say, I want to be an astronaut. But space, as you grow up, you realize that space seems too far and space seems too impossible to achieve, right? Then, a number of years back, we had our first Angkasa 1. What seemed impossible became possible, but it starts with dreaming the impossible. For me, sports was impossible. One of the toughest times that I had in school was the fact that my friends could play. My friends would play sports, but I had to watch from my class. And I was an active kid. So I stopped walking since the age of 3. I couldn't walk, but I could still move around. I could kneel. Then I would kneel down, jump on my bed, and break my femur. The femur is your biggest bone. It's the biggest bone in your body, so it's the hardest to break. But I just snapped it just like that for jumping on my bed when I know I'm not supposed to, right? Um, Sports was crazy because I've always dreamt about being an athlete. So at the age of maybe 15, 16, I googled Paralympic wheelchair basketball. And the first image I found was a wheelchair basketballer with a ball in midair. He and his wheelchair was in midair with another wheelchair below it. So I said, okay, probably I shouldn't be doing that, right? So I thought to myself, what else can I do? So I never really thought about it. And it was 2008. I was a freshman in college, and I was watching the opening ceremony of the Beijing 2008 Paralympic Games. I was waiting for the Malaysian team to come out, and I was just waiting anxiously. And suddenly, a big feeling of just an overwhelming sense of emotions came over me. And I was watching the athletes pointing the cameras, their phones, with the new generation, pointing the phones as they're walking out. They're just pointing their phones to the audience. And I told myself, one day, I want to be there. Not watching as an audience, but the one holding the phone. And so, I didn't really do much about it. That vision, that impossible dream, got left behind the back of my head for until I graduated from college. And in 2012, I received my first sports wheelchair. So I was using something heavier before this, and I had the opportunity to acquire a new sports wheelchair. And I told myself, I've always wanted to do marathons, right? Because I felt that there's a lot of things that we can learn from marathon running that can be applied to life. And so I tried my first 10 km with my friend over there, Alex Aoyong. I did it in an hour, 4 minutes. At the end of it, I had cramps on my arms, my chest, my core, my legs. I have no idea why my legs cramped, but yeah, it happened somehow. And the whole world was spinning. So I said, okay, maybe I should try better next time and train better. And about 6 months later, I did my second 10 km and I completed it in 45 minutes. And so I went on to further distances, 21 km. I did my first 21 km in 2 hours plus, and then later on I tried the Penang Bridge and did it in sub 2, which is below 2 hours. I finished 21 km in 1 hour 58 seconds. 1 hour 58 minutes, yes. And then the year after that, I did a full marathon in 4 hours plus 4 hours 20 minutes. Yeah, 21 minutes. Thank you. But in between In between the 21 km and this, so this was in 2013 and 2014. In between these two events, I was called by Alex, who joined me for my first 10 km, and he said, "Do you want to join me for your first full marathon?" I said, "Sure, why not?" We were raising funds for the underprivileged children, and I said, and because of the relationship I had with the children, I felt so inspired by them, and I said I wanted to do more. So after that, I told him, you know what? I know I'm supposed to do a full marathon in that 100 km distance, but I want to train as if I'm doing that. So it was impossible to jump from 21 km, being my furthest at that point, to 100 km. I don't recommend this to anyone, by the way, so don't do this without a doctor's supervision. But it is impossible. But I believe that when you have an impossible dream, but you have realistic plans and goals and the right people and resources to help you, you can go beyond what you can imagine. I think that if we always set a target that is achievable, we will always achieve it, right? If I train with 42 km in mind, I will probably finish 42 km. But I train with 100 km in mind, and even if I fail, 42 km is nothing. Then later on, I played sitting volleyball for the Asian Youth Games, and even that, because people were telling me that, Daniel, do you want to do wheelchair racing? Sure, but there's no coach in Malaysia, no coaches in Malaysia, no program, nobody is doing it. I told myself I want to reach the Paralympics no matter what. So in the end, I tried out sitting volleyball. I wasn't sure whether I should play sitting volleyball with brittle bones, but in the end, I played it and I had talent in it, and I represented Malaysia for it as well. But I always believe that in order to really find your potential, you have to see challenges as an opportunity to grow. Don't see challenges as something that you don't want to happen, you want to avoid. Yeah, sure. Don't be a troublemaker, right? But you want to see every challenge as an opportunity to grow. This was how I broke my femur and was casted like that at that point in time because of the old technology. Nowadays, if you break a femur, you go in with the surgery, you're out without a cast. So at that point in time, I was casted like that for 3 months, up to the waist. When I started my Paralympic journey last year, I had a few challenges. Number one, I didn't have resources, no coach in Malaysia, no program, no budget, no racing chair. And then finally, I acquired it early of the year. Then, early of the year, I broke a rib. And after that, I recovered. I thought to myself, this is just an opportunity to grow. Yeah. Then 2 months later, I fell down from my chair and injured my leg, so I couldn't train. Okay, this is another opportunity to grow. But it is not just a positive mindset, it is having realistic plans. So even in the hospital, I was planning, what should I do right now that will bring me closer to my goal, even if it takes a longer time. So I recovered from that. Now I can go back to training. About close to 3 months ago, I had lost some vision on my left eye, and doctor said it's multiple retinal tears. So I had to go through surgery to prevent myself from being blind. Took 2 months off. I just got back to training 3 weeks ago. So multiple challenges that come along the way, but all the heroes I've seen, whether it's a comic book hero or whether it is a real life hero that I really admire, all of them, we relate to them not at their highest. We relate to them when they are at their lowest. And so I always believe that that is an opportunity to grow. But even while we are looking at our dreams, and that dreams sometimes become passion, and passion, I believe, although we have multiple passions, sometimes those passions can become purpose. And my purpose is to inspire people with my life. Sports is just a platform, a tool. Nothing matters more than me inspiring people to fulfill their potential in life. And so, to discover the potential of your human spirit, your spirit is important to build around our purpose. So my goal is to inspire. So I spend a lot of time in leadership development with youth. I do a lot of charity work. I spend a lot of time with people, and that's the goal. Sports is just something that I personally want to achieve, but also because it brings me closer to my goal. And sometimes you would think that, Daniel, I have a dream, but I'm not too sure what to do because all the challenges come. But I believe that if you build everything around a purpose that is stronger and bigger than you will be able to find ways to overcome those challenges. Because it's no longer just a passion, it is a purpose in life. Push to Inspire is what I came up with a few years back. It is a name that I use, but more so it is coming from a belief that everyone can push beyond their perceived limitations and their challenges to fulfill their potential. And I believe that if every one of us here fulfill our God-given potential, we will inspire others to do the same. And this was a story of how I realized my potential in racing. I went to a 3 or 5 km race, 5 km race, and with some hopes of winning, I was a newcomer there. There were close to 200 people, and some of them were athletes, elite athletes in different sports. I went there with some hopes of winning, and on that night itself, people said, somebody introduced me to Sunny. Sunny is Malaysia's #1 wheelchair marathoner. I said, okay, that's it. I have no chance. But again, if my purpose is not just about sports, it's not just about winning, it is about inspiring people, I will find a way. And I told myself, I used to wear a message back in the day, wherever I went to race, and I realized that in order for more people to see my message, I should start last. Long story short, I won the first wheelchair race I joined, 5 km, with the second place coming in 45 seconds later. So that was how I discovered I have potential in racing. I have the privilege and opportunity to meet Nick Vujicic. He is no stranger to a lot of you. And yes, arms and legs aside, all those limitations aside, he is essentially just a person with a purpose in life to make a difference in the world. He's not trying to overcome his disability. Yeah, when we were younger, yes, maybe. But when we think of a purpose bigger than ourselves, greater than ourselves, and we realize that we have an opportunity to help change this world with our spirit, then we realize that nothing is more important than a purpose bigger than ourselves. And because of that, I am pursuing Tokyo 2020 Paralympics. It's a personal goal that I want, but more importantly, I want to use it to inspire people. And I believe that you can also use something in your life, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be Paralympics, it doesn't have to be big, but something that you can use to inspire someone. Because I believe that he who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. And if you can find a why that you can really hold on to and believe in, no challenges is too big. Thank you so much for your time.